How long you guys were dating, and those kind of things initially?
Okay. I think I met him sometime in June, probably early June. It might have been May. It was just talking at work. It was pretty casual. And he didn't have a wedding ring on his finger. And every time I talked to him, he didn't tell me that he was in a relationship. He didn't even mention his kids right away either. And then one day he told me that he had 2 kids. I was like, that's pretty cool. And started telling me about his kids.
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day too. So whenever that is in June?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not good with holidays.
he told me he had kids, and then it was Father's Day shortly after that. So that's what I do now. And I was like, I thought it was cute. And then he's telling me about him. He's pretty excited about him. And then he mentioned that he did have a significant other. And then he told me that those 2 were in the process of a separation.
Did he mention the children's name or his significant other's name?
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while. And then I think he told me his kids' names pretty quick, but to be honest with you, on an exact date of when that happened, I don't know. And I just feel like some of this happened so long ago that I can't tell you like the exact words of the exact conversation at the exact time and place, because it's like we had a lot of conversations. I mean, we talked every single day. So it's like I'm trying to help you guys with the stuff, like the stuff that's more current. I can give you guys a lot more like detail and exact times. But when you're asking me about something that happened 6 weeks ago and exactly what was said, it's like, I mean, I'm sure I can give you a general idea, but to be honest with you, like to pinpoint exact words, it's not going to happen.
Did you ever give him like books or articles or anything to read about saving your marriage? Did you ever provide anything to him like that?
About saving his marriage?
Yeah, like how to recover a marriage or how to save your marriage. You know, there's all sorts of publications and books out there.
No, but I did tell him, and I don't know if I did this through text or phone. That will be something you guys will, I'm sure, figure out. But I told him a few times, like, I think that you should take the time to read some articles.
Chris Watts, WATTS.
What's going on right now around your house?
Right now, you got K9 units, the sheriff's department. Everybody's like they're doing their best right now to figure out like if they can get a scent, see where they went. If they went on foot, they went in a car, or they went somewhere. And right now, it's just like they've been on point. They're going through the house trying to get a scent, and hopefully they can pick something up to where it's going to lead to something.
What happened? Your wife came home. Tell me what's.
She came home from the airport at 2 a.m. and I left around 5:15. She was still here, and like about 12:10 in that afternoon, her friend Nichol showed up at the door. Like I had texted Shanann a few times that day, called her, say, but she never got back to me. But she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well, and that's what really concerned a lot of people. Is like she's not getting back to her. Like if she doesn't get back to me, that's fine. Like she gets busy during the day, but she didn't get back to her people, which was very concerning. And Nichol called me when she was at the door, and that's when I came home. And then walked in the house, and nothing was vanished. Nothing was here. I mean, she wasn't here. The kids weren't here. Nobody was here.
What's your wife's name?
Shanann, SHANANN.
What's your kids?
Bella and Celeste.
How do you spell Celeste?
CELESTE.
How old are your daughters?
4. Bella's 4. Celeste is 3.
And so, how many times did you try calling her?
I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times, just to say, what's going on. Like because after I called her and texted her once, it's like maybe she was just busy. Like she had just gotten back. Like everybody's probably calling her from her trip. She just got back from Arizona, and I figured she was just busy. But when her friend showed up, that's what it was like. It registered. Like, all right, this isn't right.
Do you think she just took off? Do you think?
I mean, right now I don't even want to just like throw anything out there. Like, I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But I mean, could she just taken off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, like I want them back now. Like that's what's in my head. Like if they're safe right now, they're going to come back. But if they're not safe right now, that's the not knowing part. Like if they're not safe, last night I had every light in the house on. I was hoping that I would just ran over by the kids running in the door and just like barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here.
I'm going to ask some kind of tough questions about the relationship with the kids.
My kids are my life. I mean, those smiles light up my life. And just like, I mean, last night, like during when they usually eat dinner, it was just like I miss them. Like, I mean, I miss telling them, hey, you got to eat that, or you're not going to get your dessert. And just like you're not going to get your snack after. I miss that. Like I miss them. Cuddle up on their couches. They have like a Minnie Mouse couch and a Sophia couch that they cuddle up on and watch, Bubble Guppies or something. And it was just like, I was. It was tearing me apart last night, and I needed that. I needed that last night, and for nobody to be here last night and to go into their rooms and know that I wasn't going to turn the rain machines on, and I know that I wasn't going to turn their monitor on, and know I wasn't going to kiss them to bed tonight. It was. That's why last night was just horrible. I couldn't do it. I want everybody to just come home. Like wherever they're at, come home. That's what I want.
Where was she gone she was on. She came back Sunday. You said at 2 at night.
Yeah, because her flight got delayed from Arizona because of like other storms around the nation. So she's supposed to get home at like 11. She got home at like 1:48. She got in bed about 2.
What was she going for? Like family trip or like?
It was a Thrive direct sales. It was a local event that was down there between a bunch of leaders in the company.
Good morning. Welcome to be seated. Okay, we are on the record. We are in Division 17 of the Welcome County District Court, and we are here regarding Welcome County case number 18 CR 2003, people of the state of Colorado versus Christopher Lee Watts. My name is Marcelo Cuptown, the District Court Judge here in Welcome County, and I will be the presiding judge in this case. And I will please have the lawyers identify themselves in the record, starting with the prosecution.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michael Rourke on behalf of the people. Patrick Roach on behalf of the people.
Governor John Walsh on behalf of the defense. Jim Burson on behalf of Mr. Watts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Rourke, do you want to make a record regarding compliance with the Victims' Rights Act?
Yes, Your Honor. We are in compliance with the Victims' Rights Act. Frank Rusick, who is Shanann Watts' father, is present in the courtroom, as is Frankie Rusick, who is Shanann Watts' brother. They are present in the courtroom, and we have advised them of the purpose of today's hearing and what we expect to occur.
Thank you. Mr. Watts, last week I gave you a limited advisement because charges had not been filed. They have now been filed, so I'm going to give you the full advisement. If at any time you have any questions, please let me know, and you're welcome also to certainly consult with your attorneys, okay? So, you do not need to make any statements. Any statements you make can be used against you. Do you understand? You have the right to be represented by counsel, and if you're indigent, you have the right to request the appointment of counsel or consult with the public defender before any further proceedings are held, and I see that you take advantage of that right. Any plea that you make must be made voluntarily and not the result of undue influence or coercion. You understand that? Yes. At this point, I have denied your right to bail, given the charges. You can certainly have a conversation shortly about that issue. You have the right to understand the nature of the charges. We'll go over that in a moment. You have the right to a jury trial. You also have the right to demand and receive a preliminary hearing within a reasonable time to determine whether probable cause exists to believe that the offenses charged were committed by you. Do you understand? I assume that the defense has received a copy of the complaint and information. Mr. Watts will explain to you what you have been formally charged with and what the possible penalties are. Count 1 alleges that on or about August 13th, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Shanna Watts in violation of Colorado Revised Statutes 18-3-102, subsection 1, subsection 8, and that crime is classified as murder in the first degree of Class 1 felony. Do you understand? Count 2 alleges murder in the first degree, also a Class 1 felony, and it reads that between and including August 12th, 2018 and August 13th, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Bella Watts in violation of Colorado Revised Statutes 18-3-102, subsection 1, subsection 8. Do you understand? Count 3 alleges murder in the first degree, a Class 1 felony, and specifically it alleges that between and including August 12th, 2018 and August 13th, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Celeste Watts in violation of Colorado Revised Statutes 18-3-102, subsection 1, subsection 8. Do you understand? Count 4 alleges murder in the first degree, a Class 1 felony. It alleges that between and including August 12th, 2018 and August 13th, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, and knowingly caused the death of Bella Watts, a child who had not yet attained 12 years of age, and the defendant was in a position of trust with respect to the victim.
Why she was distressed. Here is what she said. These are her documented words. All those phone calls at the very end of the night. That was me freaking out like I cannot sleep. I am really scared. Where is your family? That was me freaking out, and him calling to try to assure me. Just making sure everything was okay. I'm really scared. Where is your family? Let that sit for a moment. In her official account to investigators, Nichol stated that she assumed Shanann had simply gone to a friend's house. Couples argue. She needed space. She would come back. That was the explanation she gave for why she was not alarmed when Chris mentioned his family was gone. But if you genuinely believe a woman has gone to cool off at a friend's house, there is nothing to be scared of. There is no reason to lose sleep. There is no reason to need reassurance at 2 a.m. that everything is okay. You are only scared at 2 a.m. if you already know or strongly suspect that the situation is something entirely different from a couple needing space. And then came the moment that may be the single most damning detail in Nichol Kessinger's entire documented record. At 1:51 a.m. on August 14th, Nichol called Chris. At 1:58 a.m., while they were still on that call, Chris began receiving calls from the Frederick Police Department. They ended their call. Chris called the officer back at 2:05 a.m. on his work phone, and within seconds of that police call beginning, Nichol called Chris's personal phone, both calls running simultaneously. The investigating officer on the work phone, Nichol on the personal phone, at 2 a.m. While an officer was beginning to ask questions about where his family had gone, investigators who reviewed these records noted what the sequence implies. She was listening in, monitoring in real time what the officer knew and what he did not. She has never been asked to explain why she called back at that exact moment. That call, at 2:05 a.m. on August 14th, was the last documented communication between Nichol Kessinger and Chris Watts. Shortly after, she deleted virtually everything from her phone before surrendering it to investigators. Why does someone with nothing to hide call back the moment a police conversation begins at 2 a.m? Why does someone who believes Shanann simply left to cool down need to know in real time what an officer is asking? Those questions are in the record. They have never been answered. In 2026, Dylan Tallman, Chris Watts' former cellmate at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, released a book series titled The Cell Next Door, containing what he says are direct accounts of conversations he had with Watts during the 7 months they were housed next to each other. I am going to be completely transparent about how I treat this source, because that transparency is what separates this channel from noise. Dylan Tallman is a self-admitted career criminal. His book originates from the words of Chris Watts. Chris Watts is not a reliable narrator of his own life. He is a man who, in verified prison letters reported by multiple news outlets, compared his life sentence to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. A man who has consistently distributed blame to every woman around him, while framing himself as someone who was led astray. Nothing Chris Watts says is accepted here at face value. The only meaningful question when evaluating Tallman's claims is this: does what he reports align with evidence that already existed in the discovery record before his book was ever written? On several specific points, the answer is yes. Tallman writes that on the night of August 12th, during the 111-minute phone call between Chris and Nichol, she issued an ultimatum. According to Tallman's account, she told Chris directly, "It is your family or me. We cannot independently confirm that conversation took place. But here is what we absolutely can confirm, using only evidence that existed before Tallman published a single word." At 10:33 a.m. on August 13th, 9 minutes after hanging up with Shannan's mother, who had just been told by Chris that Shannan went to a friend's house, Chris Watts opened Google and searched for hotels in Aspen, Colorado. 9 minutes later, he called a mountain resort directly. A man who has just committed 4 murders, who has just fed a cover story to his mother-in-law, who is managing co-workers by text to keep them away from the crime scene, is searching for resort hotels in the mountains. What is the innocent explanation for that sequence? If this crime was driven purely by impulsive rage, as Chris repeatedly claimed in his early interviews, you do not search Aspen Resort hotels 9 minutes after manufacturing a story for your grieving mother-in-law. You only do that if you believe your next chapter has already been arranged, if you believe someone else is managing the rest of the details, if you are not improvising, but executing a plan. Dylan Tallman did not create that hotel search. It was in the discovery file. He arrived on top of suspicion that was already fully documented and fully established. And there is one more thing Tallman recorded that reveals something essential about the man at the center of all of this. In a prison conversation about how the public perceives him, Chris Watts reportedly said, "I wish people would judge me on my whole past instead of just that one day. That one day. The day he strangled his pregnant wife. The day he drove his daughters to a remote oil field and killed them." He refers to those acts as that one day, a single blemish against an otherwise acceptable history. That is not remorse. That is a man seeking partial credit, weighing years of ordinary fatherhood against a morning of premeditated violence, and expecting the arithmetic to come out somewhere in the middle. It will not. Before we reach the final section, this case requires a moment that it consistently does not get. Chris Watts was identified within 24 hours. Not because of sophisticated surveillance technology, not because of investigative procedure alone, but because of the women who love Shannan and who moved faster than he ever anticipated. Nicole Atkinson had been with Shannan in Arizona on that work trip. She had watched her friend navigate the quiet collapse of her marriage across the entire weekend. She had driven Shannan home from the airport at nearly 2 a.m. on the 13th, and stood at the door until she was safely inside. When 9 o'clock arrived, and Shannan missed her prenatal appointment scheduled for testing on her pregnancy with Nico, Nicole did not wait. She did not send another text. She drove to the doctor's office, confirmed Shannan was a no-show, and went directly to 2008 25 Saratoga Trail. Her son looked through the garage window. He saw Shannan's car. He saw the girl's car seats still inside. Nicole Atkinson called the police. While Chris was at the oil field site managing co-workers by text, Nicole stood on that driveway and refused to move until someone with a badge arrived. She is a primary reason this case broke open in hours rather than days. Cassie, one of Shannan's closest friends, cut through every manipulation tactic Chris attempted with a single response. When he reached out and wrote, "I really do not want you to think I am a bad person, Cassie," she replied. "Right now, Chris, I do not care about you. I do not care about your relationship, or what type of person you are or are not. And I am not trying to be rude when I say that. She had one question: where is Shanann? Everything else was noise. And Addie, the moment she got off a phone call with Chris that afternoon, sent a single message to the friend group that stands as one of the most precise things said by anyone in the first hours of this case. The police need to look at Chris's cell phone and his computer. One phone conversation was all she needed. She had read exactly who she was dealing with and named the evidence that would break the case open. She was right. These women compressed the timeline before anyone could finish covering their tracks. Their refusal to accept the explanations being handed to them is the reason evidence existed before more of it could disappear. They have never received the credit this case owes them. Let me lay this out with precision, because this is not a list of theories. This is a documented record of what the official investigation confirmed and then did not pursue. 1. Her phone pinged a cell tower near the Watts family home at 6:16 a.m. on the morning of August 13th, a tower her phone had never once pinged in months of prior records, and never pinged again afterward. No investigator formally asked her to account for this location. No official explanation was ever produced. 2. Less than 36 hours before that ping, she had searched the Watts family home address online. That search was in the discovery record. It was never raised as a direct point of confrontation.
Mr. Watts, why did you kill your wife and 2 children?
What did you confess?
In any of her 6 interviews. 3. She requested photographic proof of Chris's presence at Survey 319, the crime scene, on the day of the murder. This is documented in Discovery. In months of prior records, she had never once asked him to photograph his work location on any other day. The investigator who had this information did not follow up. 4. She spent 156 minutes on the phone with Chris on the night of the murders, calls she could not coherently account for when interviewed. She offered to come in and manually reorganize her messages to fill those gaps. She never returned. No investigator followed up. 5. She called Chris's personal phone the moment a police call connected on his work phone at 2 in the morning while Shanann was still classified as missing. No investigator ever formally asked her to explain the timing of that specific call. 6. She deleted the entire content of her phone before surrendering it to investigators. The forensic lab report issued by Detective Michael Prill on October 30th, 2018 confirmed in writing that the technology available at the Northern Colorado Forensic Laboratory did not allow for complete data extraction from Apple devices. Hundreds, possibly thousands of messages were never recovered. Prill made this limitation explicit in his report. He was not speculating about what might be missing. He was documenting in writing for the record that the investigation had an irreversible technological ceiling, and that everything sitting above that ceiling would never be seen by anyone. The report was filed. The limitation was acknowledged, and the investigation was declared complete anyway. 7. During one of her interviews, she casually referenced using Skype with Chris, a platform that carries entirely separate message records from a standard phone thread, requiring a separate legal request to obtain. Skype records were never requested. 8. Chris Watts's confirmed use of Snapchat, a platform whose fundamental design auto-delete messages, was documented inside the discovery file. Snapchat records were never subpoenaed. 9. She had searched Shanann Watts by name as early as January 2018, 5 months before she claims to have met Chris. This was confirmed as real data by Michael Rourke on record. It was never independently investigated because Chris Watts entered a guilty plea. 10. The source of the oxycodone Chris used on Shanann, confirmed present in her system by the toxicology report, remains officially unknown. Chris has refused to name the source. He stated it is a secret he will take to his grave. No official investigation has ever answered that question. Those are 10 documented, confirmed, publicly verifiable gaps in an investigation that was officially declared complete. Any one of them individually can be rationalized. All 10 together, in sequence, aligned with the timeline of a quadruple homicide, cannot. Chris Watts is 40 years old. He is inside Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin. He works as a custodian. He attends Bible study. He writes letters. He is serving 3 consecutive life sentences. Without the possibility of parole, he will die inside that building. That part of justice is secured. And it is exactly right. Nichol Kessinger changed her name. She left Colorado. She gave one interview to the Denver Post in late 2018, described herself as a victim of Chris's manipulation, and has not spoken publicly since. She was never charged. And here, with absolute precision, is what that means and what it does not mean. Michael Rourke made a legal determination that the evidence as it existed at that specific moment did not meet the threshold required for prosecution. That is a legal calculation made at a specific point in time. It is not an acquittal. It is not a declaration of innocence. It is a prosecutorial decision made at a specific moment, before 10% of the documented gaps I just described were ever formally pursued. In his own interview with Investigation Discovery, Rourke described Nichol Kessinger's information as A, and these are his words, bombshell that helped build the case against Chris. He described Chris as appearing to have had every intention of starting a new life with her. That is not the language of a man who believed she had nothing to do with any of it. He said the evidence did not support charging her. He did not say she was innocent. Those are different statements, and the difference between them is exactly where the unanswered questions live. Shanann Watts was 34 years old. She documented her life openly, her marriage, her daughters, her business, her hope, because she believed in what she was building. She was not naive. She was not blind. She knew something was deeply wrong. In the weeks before August 13th, she searched for marriage counselors. She ordered a book on rebuilding relationships. She wrote her husband a letter telling him she would fight for them. She did everything a person is supposed to do when the life they love is beginning to fracture, and none of it was enough, because the fracture was not an accident. It was a plan. Bella was 4 years old. August 13th was supposed to be her first day of school. Celeste was 3. Nico never took a single breath outside of his mother. None of them had any say in any of it. The phone records are there. The forensic reports are there. The GPS coordinates are there. The interview transcripts are there. The evidence does not become less true because it remains unacted upon, and it does not become less worth knowing. There is one final piece that belongs here. Detective Michael Prill submitted his forensic data report to the Weld County District Attorney's Office on October 30th, 2018. It was unlike anything else in the entire discovery file. For the first time, someone inside law enforcement was writing in a way that made clear they were no longer fully accepting the narrative Nichol Kessinger had constructed since August 15th. Prill documented her search history in specific detail. He flagged her deletion of critical evidence. He stated with certainty that Chris was communicating with Kessinger through channels beyond what had been examined. He noted the secret calculator application through which images were arriving entirely outside any standard text thread. Images that required a separate investigation to trace, an investigation that never happened. And he described her voicemails and her general effect across the evidence he reviewed using one specific word. His word, in an official government document. Creepy. That is the word a forensic detective used inside an official report to describe the woman law enforcement had classified as a protected cooperative witness. Now consider the standard legal process. Discovery materials travel from the DA's office to the court to defense counsel and then to the defendant. That process typically takes several days. By approximately November 2nd, 2018, Chris Watts very likely had Detective Prill's full report in his hands at Weld County Jail on November 6, 2018. Exactly 1 week after that report was issued, Chris Watts accepted a guilty plea. No trial, no witness testimony under oath, no Nichol Kessinger on a stand being cross-examined by a defense attorney who had read every single word of that discovery file. The case closed. Whether Chris Watts accepted that plea purely to avoid the death penalty, or whether he understood that a trial would force questions into a courtroom that certain people needed to keep out of, is something only he can answer. But 1 week between that forensic report and that guilty plea is not a coincidence. That explains itself. If you stayed with me to the end of this, thank you. I genuinely mean that. I want to ask you 2 specific questions in the comments. I read everything you write. First, the phone ping at 6:16 a.m., placing Nichol Kessinger's device near the Watts family home on the morning of the murders. Does that single piece of evidence change how you have understood this case? Second, the 10 documented gaps, the Skype records never requested, the Snapchat subpoena that never happened, the Survey 319 photo request, the alibi witness she refused to name, the January 2018 search for Shanann. Do you believe the investigation was complete? Tell me where you stand. Tell me what landed hardest. Tell me what I missed. And if this video gave you something new, something assembled in one place that you had not seen before, share it. Not for numbers, because these questions deserve to reach more people than they currently have. Subscribe to Revealing Untold Crimes, because we are not finished with cases like this. We go where the evidence leads, not where the official narrative stops. We ask the questions that should have been asked 8 years ago. We are not here to convict anyone in the court of public opinion. We are here to show you what sits in the public record, what was documented and then left alone, and why that matters. The phone data exists. The forensic reports exist. The interview contradictions exist. The timeline gaps exist. And all of it deserves to be known, not because it changes the fact that Chris Watts is exactly where he belongs, but because justice for Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico is not complete until every question that can be answered has been answered. Like this video, if you believe incomplete investigations in cases involving murdered children deserve a second look. Subscribe if you want more content that assembles the evidence the way it should have been assembled from the beginning. For Shanann, for Bella, for Celeste, for Nico, justice is not a moment. It is a direction, and we keep moving toward it.